Howard Stern said the unvaccinated shouldn't be treated in hospitals. Do you agree or disagree, and why? There's a more mature version of this question that me and some other medical students in my class are discussing that will address some of the responses you're getting. The issue is not just whether or not people who are unvaccinated deserve to be treated. The issue is we are now at the point where we are rationing very scarce resources. I'm of the opinion that not treating the unvaccinated who have severe COVID is more akin to not giving smokers access to a lung transplant over those with congenital conditions. You aren't punishing the smoker. You are allocating the resources in a way that accounts for epidemiological concerns. For the general public health, not just any individual. No, they shouldn't be mistreated because they made a bad decision. But when it comes to rationing, they absolutely should be bottom billing. Not because of the punishment factor, but because the survival of an anti-vaxxer over the survival of somebody who has a surgery postponed is a travesty. It just releases that person back into the world so they can infect others while punishing somebody else for not being more immediately sick, but still definitely sick. That's the key here. We are rationing. This is not a normal time. I think that's the problem, is that people aren't seeing this as situation-based. There's a lot of very dichotomous thinking in this thread when the real-world situation isn't quite that simple. I agree with your comparison to transplant patients because it illustrates how the problem is resources. And you have to make choices about how to allocate those resources cause there aren't enough, full stop. I hope you're staying safe at this time. I can't imagine how stressful this time is for anyone in the medical field, especially students. It depends on what Ja Rule thinks. Will someone please find Ja Rule so I can make some sense of all this? Where is Ja? I don't know where Ja is, but I do know he's always on time. Everyone always asks where is Ja? And never how is Ja? Everyone always asks how much is a G? And never how is a G? A+. Pretty bizarre argument, seeing as we don't make treatment exceptions for other poor choices that people make. Edit. Wow, this blew up. I did not mean for this to come across as an anti-vax comment at all. My point just being that it seems like a slippery slope denying people urgent treatment regardless of vaccination status, but I understand it's a nuanced issue and appreciate the input from y'all. Everyone please get vaccinated and let's keep each other safe. Sure we do. Candidates for organ transplant that make poor life choices by doing things like smoking, having a poor diet, drinking, etc. are given a lower priority for an organ because of those choices. While they aren't outright denied an organ, their lower priority coupled with the high demand for organs means that they're effectively denied in most cases. Former dialysis nurse here. Patients can be denied transplants due to a host of reasons. Not attending physician appointments, not having regular labs done, not attending treatments, etc. To explain the rationale here, the deprioritization is not punitive, because compliance with these behaviors before the transplant are indicators of how the potential recipient might behave after the transplant. If the recipient does not do these things after, they will ruin another organ. That is bad gamble on a scarce resource. What does Howard Stern think? Said nobody ever. Howard Stern literally makes a living off of people thinking. I wonder what Howard Stern thinks? Damn it, you are right. I guess maybe I am technically correct because he always tells people, nobody is ever left wondering. It takes a big person to admit when they are only technically correct. Lot of growth here tonight. The angry, vindictive part of me agrees. The compassionate part of me thinks that, okay, so they shouldn't be denied treatment, but they should be lower priority than other emergency cases. What is going to end up happening is that medical insurance companies are going to stop paying for COVID treatments for the unvaccinated. They won't eat the treatment costs forever when the vaccine is scientifically proven to significantly lessen the effects of COVID to the point where hospitalization is not required. So it won't be the hospitals making the stand, it will be the people footing the bill. Yeah, money talks. I bet that this is where the politicization will stop, when people have to pay dollar for their so-called principles, after health insurance kicks them to the curb. I think, mainly, we shouldn't be hanging medical policy on what a Howard Stern says. You should probably ignore the Howard Stern part as it's irrelevant and focus on the more meaningful question. Yeah, why do people get so hung up on the who all the time? I care so little about the person and so much about the substance. It's an interesting stance on an important topic, and I'd love to see all the perspectives we have on it. It's easy to dismiss a person. That's why you hear things like, probably have a degree in gender studies, kiddo, or probably a welfare hillbilly who thinks he'll be rich one day. It's so much harder to dismiss an idea, so they take the ad hominem route. It's a cop-out. Everyone deserves basic medical care, especially when it's an emergency. Even if they're an idiot. The issue is that hospitals are already incapable of treating everyone due to being overcapacity. It's not a matter of should we let idiots suffer at this point. It's a matter of should we let innocents die to save the idiots. Triage matters here. So I guess the question is if vaccination status should be a factor in triage or not. I guess it becomes, should we try to save the people who have the biggest chance of survival, or the ones in the biggest risk? Mind you, I don't have the answer for that. I think medics generally choose the former, which can be problematic in its own way. But then again, everything can. I guess it becomes, should we try to save the people who have the biggest chance of survival, or the ones in the biggest risk? Yes. The first one. Even in times of abundance, overusage of resources can be at best just be frustrating for providers and potentially dangerous for patients. I've had this story told to me of a surgeon who used 100 of the 120 units in the blood bank on a single patient. Disagree. We're already slipping down the slippery slope of treating people we disagree with as non-humans or subhumans. I'd prefer not to encourage or support further dehumanization. No, of course not. Should smokers be given medical treatment? Drug users? Obese people? Sex workers? Jews? Homosexuals? White men? People who own firearms? People who are rich? People who disagree with you politically? Where do you draw the line? Will you feel comfortable letting the other party draw that line next time they take control of the government? The only correct answer is you don't draw a line. You treat people who need treatment. What the hell is wrong with people today? It's a slippery slope. Do we not treat AIDS patients because they've had unprotected sex, lung cancer victims because they smoked? How far are we willing to go? No treatment for overweight heart attack victims, anyone? Edit, for syntax. I'm very pro-science and pro-vaccine. I get the flu shot every year and WS double vaccinated as soon as I was able, 27 FBTW and personally low risk. I am strongly against this. Doctors do not and should not get to make moral decisions on who to treat. I will die on this hill. This is not a precedent that should be set. Then what about the doctors who are anti-trans, racist, think someone with an STD shouldn't get treatment because they view them as irresponsible, etc. And when I've expressed this opinion previously, people have mentioned that alcoholics are further down the transplant ladder because of their alcoholism. But that decision is a triage one, not moral. Resources go where they will do the most good, and an unrecovered alcoholic is likely to harm the new liver too. So I'm for vaccination status being one variable taken into account for triage, but absolutely not denying people care or putting them at the bottom of the ladder just because they're anti-vax. Edit, some people seem to be missing my point. I'm aware many places are at the point of triage, and vaccination status should absolutely inform that because in general being vaccinated means a higher chance of survival. But triage doesn't mean only treating people you think deserve it. It's putting the resources where they will do the most good, helping patients with the highest chance of survival. And it sucks, but that isn't always going to be the vaccinated person. I disagree. We help people who attempt suicide in hospitals. We also help people who shove dangerous objects up their butt. We help all kinds of people who are hurt, even if it's because of their unfortunate decisions. This is tough. But human life is infinitely valuable. I look at it like this. If a person is horrifically injured in a car accident and wasn't wearing a seat belt, we still treat them. It's just all around a sad state in the country. People cheering when opposing political people get sicked. Just a sad state of affairs. The politics is outplaying humanity right now. It's a shitty world right now. I'm more concerned by a growing cultural trend that celebrates a lack of empathy. Rooting for fellow human beings to get sick and die should never be normalized. Whether it's genocide, slavery, mass rape, the Holocaust, once we begin othering people, it's a slippery slope. One love, people. Unity. Peace. There's also a trend of assigning malice to a lot of people. Anti-vaxxers generally aren't sitting there, going, oh man, it's going to be so fun fanning the flames of a pandemic and putting people in danger. The majority have just been taken in by misinformation. But there's this growing sentiment that anti-vaxxers are actively bloodthirsty and want people to die, even in this thread.